Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein, alongside Justin Frederick and Ryan Gerdes. This is my new Father's Day golf shirt. My boys got me golf shirts for Father's Day. They're finally learning.
You needed one, you know?
I like it.
What does that mean?
Do they make it in men's?
You guys
It's
suck,
good. It's
man.
like, you know?
All right. Well, we had teased on Monday's episode that today we were going to talk about the different types of homes that are expected to plummet in value. But we got into such an incredible conversation on Monday about concessions and what they are, and how it's a great leverage tool for buyers right now. So I wanted to expand on that conversation. But you're going to want to go ahead and text the word concession to 623-AZ-RECON. That's concession to 623-AZ-RECON. I know it's a big word, hard to spell, but we got ChatGPT that can help us with that right now.
Mike needs it for sure.
There's no doubt about it. So when we are talking with our buyers, and we've been talking about it for months and months and months, right now this is a buyer's market. You don't have as much competition from other buyers right now competing on homes. There's great strategies. There's great deals to be had. There's great ways to take advantage of sellers that are, let's just say what it is, desperate. The home's been on the market 90, 100, 120 days.
Yeah.
And so it's a tremendous opportunity for buyers right now. So Justin, I wanted to kind of get into concessions and your definition of what a concession is, and just want us to go around the table and just talk about how we creatively use concessions to benefit buyers. But I wanted to start with an example we talked about a couple weeks ago. We had a good friend of ours, young VA buyer, former an Army vet. And so because he was using a VA loan, he's already zero down.
Yep.
Right. But we were able to get this is it got even more advanced when you've been on your RV trip.
Yeah,
and
I
I
saw
haven't
it.
even talked to Ryan. So we had negotiated $10,000 in seller concessions. And at this point, he now is coming to the table with no money out of pocket. Because his down payment is zero.
And he got a portion of his earnest funds back,
And
right?
he got it, yeah. And so then what we did is, and your team just kind of did this.
Yeah.
And so now there was a $2,000 a flooring allowance that we had negotiated, and we were now able to take that $2,000 and add it to those concessions. And so not only did he have all his closing costs paid for, but now you were able to drop his interest rate and do a interest rate buy down. Concessions are very powerful. And I would say as we get into this, and I know our listeners are going to get really excited, it really still at the end of the day, it comes down to working with people such as our team as real estate wealth managers and know how to negotiate these concessions and maxing them out. But let's jump into concessions and how important are they? What are you seeing and how do you define it?
So what a concession is an interested party contribution. And basically anybody within the transaction, lender, seller, real estate agent,
Oh, easy now.
wealth manager, those are interested parties that collect funds from the transaction. So you're only allowed a certain percentage of interested party contributions or concessions. So there's all kinds of ways to use these funds, and gosh, they're everywhere right now. So I mean, we're getting really good at, back in the day during the sellers market. I'm saying back in the day, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, if we had concessions, it might have been less than 10% of our files, and it would be less than a point. And it would be a hard fight to get them. Now, I'm pretty sure in the last 2 months we haven't had a file go by that doesn't have a concession. I take that back. In 2 states, we don't have files that have concessions on them, and that's Virginia and Michigan. But everything that we're getting here in Arizona has concessions coming in on them, and we're talking. I would say the average concession right now is probably 3%.
And so what can that 3% be used for? If I'm
Yeah.
the buyer and I'm able to, and Mike and Ryan are able to negotiate the seller to pay 3% towards my buyer concessions, what can specifically those concessions be used for?
So we can use it to pay just your standard closing costs. We can use it to pay for your first year of homeowners insurance, which we're going to collect at closing. We can use it to pay for your appraisal. We can use it to pay for maybe you had maybe the sellers had something done for you up front and they had carpet purchased. We can use concessions towards that as long as it's done and there's an invoice. We can also not count that. We can use it to prepay HOAs for up to a year dues, capital improvement fees for HOA communities. We can buy down your interest rate. There's a program out where the seller can use concessions to pay for up to 3 months of their first payments. So essentially, you could get away with 4.5 months of no payments if a seller was willing to give concessions away to do that. We could do temporary buy downs where the first year your interest rate's 1% lower, or even up to 3% lower for the first year. There's a 3-2-1, which is first year's 3% less, second year's 2% less, third year's 1% less, and then the fourth year you're on your standard note. We could pay points to buy down the rate permanently. What else? I'm sure there's other things that we could use
Sky's
this
the
concession
limit.
for.
Yeah. Anything.
There's all kinds of things as long as it's a cost involved within the transaction, and even a home inspection. If they were willing to invoice the title company, we can pay that home inspection with concessions. So it's there, and I mean, we're at the point now where a seller can actually incentivize you by paying a portion of your monthly payment or a couple of monthly payments. That's crazy to me. It's really cool. It's really creative financing.
Well, I want to double down on the rate buy downs, because one
Okay.
of the things that buyers are hesitant of as far as getting into the game, into the real estate game, is interest rates. I don't want to jump in because interest rates are so high. And this is and they're just saying, hey, I'm done. I'm going to wait till interest rates drop to X amount of number, then I'm going to get into the game. If you can get the seller to buy down your rate, that quoted rate today is not going to be your rate. You could end up with a rate right now at the seller's expense in the fives.
You can, and that's 100% real. And the problem is we're having these initial conversations and trying to set expectations correctly with our clients, and we're here you go. This is what it looks like at this purchase price based on no buy downs. This is what you're looking at. The problem is if we go into it saying, hey, you need this buy down in order to get here, then you got an emotional buyer going out there. So we're trying to avoid that conversation at the initial start. We're trying to just here's the expectations of what today's rate are. Yes, if you get concessions, we can look at going in a lower rate, and that's called a buy down. But I don't think a lot of agents are educated enough to know that they need to go out there and negotiate that. But you're absolutely right. It's there. It's available. Those rates are on the rate sheets. We just got to get enough money to do it. And now's the time to be able to push to get it.
Well, Ryan, I think it's actually to our advantage when a buyer needs those concessions to buy down that rate, because that's what we did with a contract a couple weeks ago, where we went to the seller and say, hey, listen, here's our offer, but our buyer can only qualify if you want to sell the house. It's been on the market for 120 days. That seller knew up front, listen, if they want this contract and they want to sell their house, this is what they're going to have to give up.
Well, we're always going for what we're best deal we possibly can for our buyers, right? And I think that's just kind of the normal fabric of the environment when it comes to negotiating right now, especially in Maricopa County. I have a couple of questions and thoughts on this subject for you,
Okay.
Justin, because when we're talking about forward commitments and we're talking about rate buy downs and whatnot, some of these lenders, depending on whether it's a new home or resale, they're able to hit numbers. And I'm over here thinking like, there's a max that's allowable through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. These are still conventional and FHA, VA loans that they're doing, right? And let's say that they're giving the max amount. Let's say in a certain scenario, it's 6%.
Okay.
Okay. And then they're also subsidizing it because they bought forward commitments. Wouldn't that be them exceeding that 6%?
So in reality, to me, yes, but it's a forward commitment, so it's a pre-commitment. They're already pre-buying the rate, so
they bought it.
They bought it, and they're in the forward commitment rule. You can pay up to 8% initially to pre-buy the rate with up to 8%. So these new builds, they're just jacking up the price of the home,
right?
Putting in the 8% to buy down the rate the max that they can.
And that's what we're doing on the resale side too.
Yeah, but they're able to come in. Let's just say it's 6%. It's an FHA deal. They're able to come in and say, all right, we're going to do 8% up front, but then we're going to do 6% on the back end. So we're going to actually, in reality, be able to do 14% because of the forward commitment, which is they're able to do because when you're doing a forward commitment, you have to be able to do it on 4 or more properties initially.
Oh, so there's a minimum number.
There's a minimum number. We can't do the forward. It would be super awesome if we could do a forward commitment to a listing and just get our sellers to be like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put 8%, get this rate. I'm going to put we know we have the value here. We're going to jack this home value up.
But all the time they'll go get the forward commitment on something and then not use the forward commitment because they're not going to know whether or not the buyer is going to come through and pay cash, or if they're going to be a non-owner. So they're able to move it from one property over to the other.
They're saying we have this community and we're going to buy, there's 50 properties. We're going to buy 25 forward commitments.
Okay.
And that will work for the investor.
As long as it's 4 or more.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm over here trying to like brainstorm how
we could use them.
Yeah, how we could use them. Because
Yeah.
if we could go over there and buy money at 3 or 4% for a larger community, and then oh well, it didn't work out for those properties.
Let's shift it over to this community.
Let's move it over to this community or to this specific property.
Unfortunately,
how does that work?
That doesn't work. Unfortunately.
All right. Well, my plan's been foiled.
All right. Well, if you're in the market to buy a home, concessions are everything, and knowing how to use concessions, what to go after, and how they are going to help you is imperative for your success in your next real estate transaction. We'd love to have that conversation with you. All you got to do is text the word concession to 623-AZ-RECON. That's concession to 623-AZ-RECON, or just go ahead and text the word concession in the comment section, and we will get back to you. You had mentioned something on Monday's episode that got me even more excited, and I want to shift gears towards investors right now, because Ryan and I, we work with a lot of investors. A lot of investors listen to this show, and a lot of investors, because they are independent contractors and they write off as much taxes as possible, a lot of them think, well, there's no hope for me. I can't go out and buy anything. But not necessarily the case. We've got some great programs, whether they're bank statement loans and DSCR loans and things like that. But the most exciting part about it was part of the problem when Ryan and I, as investors, were negotiating something. We love concessions. We love to take advantage of concessions. But the amount of concessions that were available to these types of loans for investors was really limited. And we couldn't take advantage. But now what you're saying is on some of these investor loans, and you can kind of go into some of the highlights of these loan programs, but now that the cap on those concessions have gone up considerably.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a game changer for these specific programs, such as the DSCR or the bank statement loan. You might want to take advantage of a DSCR or a bank statement loan over a traditional conventional loan now as an investor, just because of this. Because as a traditional conventional loan, you're limited to 2% concessions. If you're able to get 5% concessions doing a DSCR, you're probably going to end up with a much better interest rate than you would on a conventional loan.
And the qualifying process is easier.
Way easier. We just need to show rental management experience with an old lease. And basically, we just need to see that property perform. Depending on the investor, depends on how that property performs. But just the simple way to put it is it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So if the home is expected to receive $3,000 a month in rent, your monthly payment needs to be $3,000 or less on that property. And then you're done. You're done besides your down payment. We don't need to take tax returns. We don't need to take W-2s, pay stubs. We don't need to go through all your business tax returns, K-1s, ask you tons of questions on what's happening here and what's happening there. We don't need P&Ls. It's a very simple process. Bank statement loans, we're taking 12 to 24 months. 24 months is going to give you a lower interest rate of business bank statements. And basically, we're going to look at what's coming in and what's going out, and we're going to give you basically 50% of what's coming in, and that's your monthly income, and you can qualify on that at a 50% ratio. With the bank statement loan, though, we're still collecting other properties, mortgage statements, all that good stuff. DSCR is just
Well, it's just a matter of at least exploring the options.
Sure.
and
yeah, and
asking the questions.
they're good options right now.
It's a fantastic program. I have a scenario to run by you, and I'm not gonna hold you to the penny on it, but let's give our listeners and our viewers an idea of what these numbers look like. If I'm a buyer of a property, and let's say my budget's $500,000,
Okay.
right? And I run into a seller, they have a home that I love, and I say, okay, well, I'm qualified for $500,000, but I still need 6% in concessions. And the seller says, okay, so I can do the math. All right, 6%. I'm all right, $30,000, right? So ultimately, I'm offering $470,000. Does it behoove me to go after the purchase price for that 6%, or does it behoove me to take concessions at 6% and purchase it at $500,000 rather than the $470,000? And what does that look like if I were to hold that note for, let's say, 10 years?
So if you're holding the note for 10 years, the chances are, I'm not running numbers right here, but I'm saying 98% chance that your monthly payments are going to be more or cheaper, more affordable at the $530,000 with the $30,000 concessions rather than taking a $470,000 purchase price. Your payments should be lower with that 6% applied to the rate.
So what typically would be like the break-even point, give or take?
It's hard to say. It depends on what the spread is on the rates. But when you start to get into the 1.5 point buy down, you start to get like more breaks on the rate spreads. Mm-hmm. So for example, let's say your par rate today was, I'm just using this, let's say your par rate today was 7%. Right now, about 0.5 point is going to buy you 1/8% lower. So you'd be at 6.875. When you start to get that the 1.5 point buy down, you're opening yourself up to way lower rates on ARMs, probably in the fives. I'm just guessing probably like 5.75 by paying 1.5 points. Mm-hmm. And it just gets lower from there.
Because the more you the more you buy it down, the more expensive it is for that 1/8 of a point.
The investor's thinking I'm going to win
right.
by you paying this prepaid interest. It's prepaid interest. You're just prepaying the interest. But in reality, if you're going to hold that note and you know you're going to hold it, you're going to win. You're going to win. So we look at those break evens. But once you start getting to that 1.5 point buy down, you tend to see the spread be like 3/8 of a point rather than 1/2. And then in some instances, you'll see like maybe 0.3 or maybe even a quarter.
So what would be the sweet spot then? 3% on purchase price and 3% in concessions. So I'm not overpaying for my buy downs.
Well, typically we're using about 2.5 to 3% just for standard closing costs, right? Mm-hmm. Title work, your appraisal, your lender fees, your homeowner's insurance, prepaid taxes, all that stuff. I would say a sweet spot. I mean, I would love to use the full 6% because then you're really coming out on the high or the low end on the payment. But I mean, if you're getting over 2 points on the buy down, you tend to see more sweeter. It's
That's
sweet.
the most
It sweetens the
significant.
juice. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
2 points towards buy down, and then using whatever concessions left over towards closing costs, and then come out of pocket for the difference. Is that usually how you'd format it?
Yeah, and a lot of times where the difference is only the down payment at that point. But we'll still go through. If we see another level where getting lower is still sweet, we'll just throw it out there. And I was planning on paying my closing costs anyways. I'll pay another $3,000 to get that rate, another 8% lower.
And because Ryan has the tendency to just to throw out questions and put you on the spot, we're going to get you an abacus. And so that way you can just at any time just start doing what you do with an abacus and figure out those numbers.
You're the one who called the audible, buddy.
I'm okay with it. I think it was a solid question though, and I feel like people need to hear that too, because for the longest time, people didn't want to pay points, and
rates were at 2.5.
Right.
Why the hell
well,
I don't care.
well, even when they were last year, and I wasn't a fan of paying points either, because we're like, well, we're hearing all these predictions that rates are going to drop.
Yeah, and they didn't.
But and I don't see them dropping anytime soon. So I think we got to play the game that we're in and understand that paying points is a tool.
You're a tool.
Your mom's a tool. I'm sorry, guys. He does.
You're not sorry.
I'm not sorry. Sorry, Georgia. It's a tool that we can't ignore, especially when we're trying to work through these situations. And if you want to own a home, explore that tool, explore that option, and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, and I would just say that we are, our team, we're more creative than most. Ryan and I, all three of us, we're investing ourselves, we're buying ourselves. So we're personally taking advantage of these tools and these concessions and are very creative, and we'd love to benefit you by giving you some of that knowledge. All you got to do is text the word concession to 623-AZ-RECON. That's concession to 623-AZ-RECON, or just put concession in the comment section.